Thank you for joining us here on the Stellar Woman Magazine and the Stellar Woman Show. My name is Stella Olivia Kikoyo, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the Stellar Woman Magazine. Stellar Woman Magazine is here to bring you thriving women's stories, knowledge, and experiences so that you too can be inspired, learn something, change one thing or two in your life, and thrive. We believe that knowledge is power, and if we move knowledge, that means that other people be able to tap into that knowledge. Of course, if knowledge is acted upon. We are here to change one woman at a time, and we believe that in this way, we shall be changing the lives of our family, lives of our community, and in a way, we shall be able to change the world and make the world a brighter world. Today, I am thrilled to be having an amazing stellar woman, and this woman is nothing other than Dr. Maggie Kigozi. Dr. Maggie Kigozi, thank you for joining us here at the Stellar Woman Magazine and the Stellar Woman Show.
Thank you for inviting me, Stella. I'm really excited to be being interviewed on the Stella magazine. It is really important to me as a feminist that we support fellow women and we try to empower them in any way we can.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's amazing. So Dr. Maggie Kigozi is commonly known as Maggie Kigozi, if you have to say. She's a medical doctor, a business consultant, an entrepreneur, an educator, a sportswoman. She is a consultant at the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and she has formerly served as an executive director of the Uganda Investment Authority. And this was for over a decade. So it is amazing that we have a woman with such a grand experience. And there's so much. She's a mother. We're going to learn so much from her. So I'm sure you will take one or two things. And I'm excited to learn from Dr. Maggie Kigozi what took her there, what made her maintain what she has maintained and achieve what she has achieved, and everything that she can give us in terms of life lessons. So let's start. Dr. Maggie, how would you describe yourself?
I am someone who is passionate about so many causes and wants to do something about them. Among these is, especially young girls, but also youth in general and women. I really feel these are areas where if I can improve their lives, I go out to do it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And what is your backstory, apart from the things that I've mentioned, or in expanding what I've mentioned, really?
Okay. I am a Ugandan, born in Uganda. And yes, my grandfathers were both English. My grandmothers were Baganda, that is the tribe here in central Uganda. And my parents, my father was an engineer. He worked for government actually the whole of his life as a district engineering officer. And my mother made clothes. So yes, I was very smart. She made them very quickly and very, very well. So she was a dressmaker and both of them never stopped working. So I had a good role models as to what I should be doing now. I do have 4 brothers, all boys, no sisters. I really missed having sisters, but I had 4 boys. And I do have already my 3 children and 4 grandchildren.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. And we can now see why you become the woman you become. You had great role models, and you are role modeling for us as well. So tell us, what was your childhood dream career? Is that what you're doing today?
I wish. Actually, it was my father's dream career. So when I was very young, I was still in nursery school. He told me I should be a doctor. I loved my father so much, I never questioned that statement. I found I could do arts quite well, but I could also do sciences equally well. So I just pushed on until I actually graduated without really thinking about me and what I like doing.
That is amazing. That's really oh, wow. Thank you for letting us know about that. So you practiced as a physician in Uganda, but also in Kenya and Zambia. What was the
Yes.
work experience like in these different countries? But also first, tell us about what it means to achieve your profession as a medical doctor, but also what it meant working across different countries.
Yes, I graduated at Makerere University, quite a famous university and very well respected. I didn't work for long because this was during Idi Amin's time. There were political problems around and my husband had to leave and he was working in Zambia. He worked for East African breweries here in Uganda. And so they actually employed him immediately in Zambia, Ndola. So as soon as I finished my internship in Mulago, which was a lovely hospital, was beginning to deteriorate a little bit, maintenance and a lot of the doctors were leaving, a lot of the nurses were leaving at that time when I left. So I joined Ndola Children's Hospital, Arthur Davison, lovely hospital in Zambia. Many foreigners actually running the hospital. It was run by the nurses and there were doctors from India, a lot from India. And then I was from Uganda. I think very few Zambians, yeah. That was strange, but I guess they hadn't had a medical school as long as we had here in Uganda. So they were just starting at Lusaka University. So I worked in Zambia for 3 years. I had I had a son in Uganda, and then I had my daughter in Zambia. And then we tried to come back home. Idi Amin was kicked out of the country and we tried to come back home. But I stayed in Nairobi. My husband came back home and started running the brewery again here in Uganda. But very soon you could see the political situation deteriorated again. The elections were supposedly rigged. And so my husband again came back to Nairobi. So we stayed in Nairobi for another 6-7 years until 1986. Now, Nairobi was a wonderful place to live, very nice place for the young children. The schools were very good. The hospitals were okay. We had drugs and everything. And so we had a very nice 6 years in Nairobi, after which the country in Uganda was taken over. President Museveni took over. So then we came home. Yeah, we were able to come home then.
Oh, that's a great experience. Thank you for letting us know. So it was so much of the political issues that took you out of the country.
Yes.
Oh, right. I can see why then. And was the experience more or less the same, dealing with the dynamics of people, dynamics of the maybe of the profession itself? Was it the same across all the 3 countries?
I think one thing was of interest to us was that with a medical degree from Makerere University, I just got employed immediately. I walked into the Ministry of Health and they would give me a job. Whereas some of my friends who were teachers were not able to get jobs easily. My husband, who was with the breweries, which was in all these places, so he worked for the same employer in all the 3 countries, and therefore he had no problem as well with getting a job. The hospitals the people are very similar. The Zambians are very similar to Ugandans. In fact, they speak my language. Where we were, Bemba is just like Luganda, and even the culture and even the appearance. So I was very much at home.
You are.
I didn't need an interpreter for my patients. I could just treat my patients. Then, of course, Kenya. Kenya was a lovely country, lots of nice things, sodas everywhere. We had shortages in the other two countries, but Nairobi, everything was available. And the people again were friendly. Swahili I learned as we went along. Otherwise, it was not my main language, but Kenyans all speak English, so that was fine. Yeah, so I worked for Kenyatta Hospital. I was then transferred to infectious disease hospital. Then after I had a baby, my last born is a musician. You may find out. His name is Navio. People know him. So after I had my last baby, I needed a job that wasn't too busy. So I was able to work with the Crescent Medical Aid, which is a clinic for Muslims at all the various mosques. So I did work at the Central Mosque in Nairobi, did work in Kibera, did work in Eastleigh, and that was also interesting. It was different and didn't keep me overnight at the job. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Decisions we have to make as mothers. That's a good one. Thank you. You continue to stay as a professional woman, but had to make a choice to go into a different form of service.
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. And we now understand that you decided at some point to become a business woman. Why did you make that decision to leave medical practice, the profession?
Oh, I didn't have a choice. I was practicing here. After '86, we came back here, and I was working in Uganda as a medical practitioner. When my husband, who was in the private sector, they had privatized the company called Crown Bottlers, which produces Pepsi and Mirinda products. So I was away, I had gone to school to visit my children. We left the children in Kenya because the schools here were really very, very poor at that time. There's been a lot of improvement. We are now quite competitive, I think, with Kenya. But at that time, the schools here were not very good. So we left the kids in Kenya, and I had gone to visit them. And I got a phone call that my husband had had a heart attack. Yeah, so he passed away. I had to come back. I came back with the children for the funeral, but I had to make some decisions. So he was actually the main breadwinner. I, as a medical doctor working for government, you do not earn very much. So now I had to decide what I could do, how I would be able to keep my children in schools like where they were in St. Andrews, Turi. My son was in Reading in the UK. So I had to make some difficult decisions. So I decided to leave medicine and go and try to work in the company where my husband was a shareholder. So I walk into Pepsi Cola, Uganda, and say, "Hi guys, I'm here." Yeah, so I do get asked some tricky questions, like, what do you know about producing Pepsi? And the answer is absolutely nothing. Yeah, so if other women are listening and other men who have wives that actually run businesses, please pay more attention. I definitely paid very little attention. I had young children, I was a sportswoman, and I was working as a doctor. So paying any attention to what was happening in the factory was not my business, I thought, but I regretted that decision when I found myself in the company trying to say, here I am and I'm ready to work. And I knew absolutely nothing about it. Yeah.
Oh, that was quite a journey and quite a shock, especially if it's a heart stroke. It's just abrupt. Yeah, so sorry about that. Wow, that must have been devastating.
Yeah.
And how you managed to hold it together and carry the children, and then also make that kind of decision to leave what you know, what you're comfortable in serving, and now have to make that type of decision. I really want to get more into the mind that is able to transcend and go past what is happening right now, of maybe going in a corner, crying and staying there for long, but now you have children and you have a business to run and show up for.
Yes.
Wow, that is so strong. That's courageous.
I don't know about that, but definitely it was a decision that I had to make, mainly for the sake of the children. I did not want them, to find themselves back in day schools in Uganda. And I really wanted them to maintain the standard of education that they had had before, so that they would not really regret the fact that their dad was not there anymore. And therefore they are lowering their standard of living and everything that they are used to. So that for me was the number one thing on my mind. Yes, it was a terrible time. I was definitely hurting very, very much. I was supported. Luckily, I had a big family network. My mother was with me. My friends were with me. So I did have a great network, but at the same time, I was frustrated that I had these people around me all the time. I did not have time to think. You are never given any time to think, because everybody thinks. If you start thinking, you're going to become miserable, you're going to start crying. But actually, there are things you need to think about. You need time to think about them. And so I was lucky I did get a few days going to the children's school to just sit down and be by myself and think what next. And in thinking what next, I also considered my medical career. It was becoming very, very difficult because HIV/AIDS, if you remember some years ago, Uganda was one of the first countries to stand out and say, we have HIV/AIDS, we have a big problem, and also try to find solutions. But by the time I was working, there was no solution yet. So my patients who had died, it was a very depressing time for any doctor when you feel, you cannot help your patient. So I was also very depressed working on patients and knowing that they'll soon be dying and there's nothing I can do. So leaving the medical practice to go into business was also another one, a solution to get me away from all this sorrow that we are all facing every day. Because an AIDS patient is always sick. So it becomes your friend by virtue of coming to see you every week with malaria or flu or cough or something or other. And so it was a sad time as far as medicine was concerned. So I was happy, let me go try something else. And maybe another thing that would be very helpful for the general public to know, my husband left a will. Yes, he wasn't very old, he was 49, but he had written a very clear will where he wanted his property to go and who was his wife and his children. So everything was very clear. So even as I walked into the company, I had this backing me. My husband said, what he has belongs to me and my 3 children. So we are here. I'm here to represent. The children were still young. I am here. And so that helped me at work, but also helped in all the other areas, the bankers, it really helps.
Yes.
So I would encourage even the ladies. Here in Uganda, we have such battles over property.
Yes.
Yes, over little pieces of land, even a car, even a house. You have your auntie and your uncle and your children all fighting for it. But if they've left a nice will like my husband did, it sorts out all those problems. Yes.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much. There's just so much for us to learn. You've talked about several things like actually getting interest in what your husband does and so that you're not completely blanked out. But you've also now noted the fact that there's a need of a will and to make sure that you are protected. And if you make decisions, you have something backing up while you're taking the steps you have to take. But definitely there's a lot going on in terms of your mind, sorting out all these decisions, making decisions for your children, leaving your profession, but also going out to say, I'm going to start afresh, because that's also scary. You're already in a scary position. You've been having a partner, now you don't have that person, and now you're going in totally a new space of work as well.
Yes, that is true. But I think I've always loved challenges. So that part of it was interesting. Every day was a learning experience. And I also, being educated myself, knew that I could get knowledge from somewhere. Someone can teach me these things, which appear so complicated. So I had a friend at the university, the Department of Commerce, the head of the department, Professor Balunywa. So I went to him and said, help, I need help here. I got presented yesterday with accounts, a profit and loss account, and I have no idea what it is saying. My two other, we're three of us in the business. My two board members never seem to agree with one another. You know, they're totally different characters. So one is very entrepreneurial, very spendthrift. The other one's very careful. So it would have been helpful for me, the third person, to sort of be able to get in between them and make a decision. But I was totally useless at that point. But it only took me, like, they have short courses, nice short courses. I did entrepreneurship for a week. I did finance for non-finance managers for a week, for 5 days. I did customer care because I was put in charge of public relations and marketing, did customer care. And I did, all the short courses that were available. I did them. I did them. And therefore, because I was also working in a business, they were relevant. And what I learned in the morning, I could see practiced in the afternoon. Yes, and it became very interesting and very exciting. Yeah, so it ended up being a very good move. And we've been able to grow the company. It was small at that time. It had just been privatized to my husband and his two partners. And we used to produce about 5 million cases of soft drinks. We now produce over 50 million, and we have a new factory. So we've grown it over the years, and yeah, that's good news.
That's very good news. And actually, Professor Balunya was also, because I was a lecturer at MOBS. Yes. Yes.
You know him well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
He hadn't gone to MOBS yet. He was still on the campus.
Yes, back out of commerce. Yes. I joined at the point of transition to MOBS.
To MOBS.
Yes.
Oh, MOBS is doing very well. I was there yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And Professor was there too. Yes, doing very, very well.
Amazing. That's very good. Very good that the programs were actually practical, that you could learn something and actually implement it, put it in action. And that's the point we also want to always emphasize. When you capture knowledge, you need to utilize it. So even when we are taking your knowledge, we need to make sure as women, we are actually taking something and implementing it. Otherwise, it's not relevant. Yes.
No.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. So you formerly served as a director of the Uganda Investment Authority. What was your experience in this role? And what are some of your accomplishments during the time?
Very relevant to the Uganda Investment Authority was the fact that as soon as I joined Pepsi, I also volunteered. I was asked to volunteer to sit on the Uganda Manufacturers Association board. This was where all the big companies sat, the big CEOs and owners of companies. And so for 6 years, I learned a lot about the private sector. I learned a lot about policy advocacy, because that's what we did. That was our core business, to advocate for the private sector. And I also became well known in Uganda because I was the voice that would be producing these reports and talking to the president, talking to the minister in the news, on TV. So I became fairly well known just by volunteering. Again, I tell this to the Ugandans who no longer wish to volunteer.
Yes.
They want to be paid for everything they do. Yes. What's the money? Uma, what's the money? What I got from Uma was just a lot. Networks that you only dream about. These are my friends. And also knowledge, again, that you only dream about. So when it came to that time when the Uganda Investment Authority was advertising for a new executive director, I had been with UMA and with Pepsi for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Now, Pepsi had attracted partners, joint ventures, and as board members, really, it's not our role to sit in the company. You get good management and you come in for board meetings. So this was a time when I felt I could move out and apply for this job, which was really a job made for me. That's the way I looked at it. So investment, I applied. There were 70 applicants, many from the Ugandan diaspora abroad and other foreigners. And because I think they were looking for somebody who has a degree, which I had in medical, but also experienced private sector, which I had a lot of. So I applied for it and I got it. Yeah, what does Uganda Investment Authority do? We identify investment opportunities in Uganda. There's also a Kenya Investment Authority and everyone has one. And we identify the opportunities here. We then promote them to the domestic investors locally, but also to foreign investors. Then we advocate. So for the issues that are making it difficult for investors to succeed, we advocate to government to change this, to bring in more power, bring in clean water, those kinds of things. Yeah, so that was the UIA. I had a team of about 30. It's a small organization. And yeah, we traveled the world. We promoted to the world. The donors loved us, so they were always supporting us, training us in all the different aspects of business that so that we could then pass it on to the Ugandan private sector, which we did. Yeah, so that was what we did. You wanted to know what results we got? Yes, we didn't do too badly. I think the time I was there, we were able to license Ugandan projects worth $10 million.
Wow.
Yeah, and foreigners, $10 billion, and then foreigners worth $4 billion foreign investment. Yes, and follow them up, see that they're doing okay. If they have challenges, we try to address them, and we continue going around the world trying to, at the beginning, for example, UK was our top investor, followed closely by Kenya and India. By the time I was leaving, China had taken over as the #1 investor, again, followed by Kenya and India. Yeah, those ones stayed there, and the UK had gone down. Yeah, so we had changes over the years, depending on what was happening in the world, how economies were doing. And I think China has retained the top position to date.
Oh, very good. That's a lot of work. Well done. Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good work. So you also founded the Uganda Investment Authority Women's Entrepreneurs Network?
Yes, I did.
What inspired you to do that?
Well, when I had just joined, I joined N99. I asked where the women were. I had been in business myself, and I knew there were other women. I knew a few of them. I said, where are the women? to my staff, a large percentage of which were women too. And they answered and said, we call them, they don't come. None of them have registered projects, they don't come. It's not because we haven't tried. So when I said, no, you haven't tried hard enough, those ladies will come. Let's think out of the box. So we started the Women Entrepreneurs Network. We sat and brainstormed and picked up 50. There were 50 investors that were women, small, medium, none was particularly large at that time. And we invited them for lunch. It invites them for dinner, invite them for tea, and we'd bring a great speaker. Somebody talk about some essential part of business, because their lack of knowledge was obvious. They didn't know anything. All those courses that I did, they didn't do. So we began doing that, and the networks they formed, they did business with one another. They helped one another. And we were, of course, able to bring them all the knowledge. You know, the best auditor, come and talk to them about audit. The best, whatever, come and talk to them about marketing and whatever. So they after that, by the time I left, we had over 500. We had over 500. We had trained, like in entrepreneurship, we also attracted a parallel project. We already had Enterprise Uganda, but it was training limited numbers. We needed huge numbers of entrepreneurs in Uganda. Yes. So we worked with MOOPS, the Entrepreneurship Center in MOOPS, and a number of others, the Ministry of Education, a number of consultants. We got trainers of trainers, then we got trainers, and we were able to train 170,000 Ugandans, wow. Yes, in entrepreneurship, a large percentage of which were women. So that is the UIA win. But the most important part of it was finding out what is preventing the women from succeeding.
Yes.
Yes. So we did do a survey with IMF, and they identified, they told us very clearly, their number one problem, according to them, was access to finance. They couldn't get finance. They had no collateral because, again, we in Uganda, the girls never inherited land. So all the land was owned by men. So you had no property that you could use in the bank for your business. So access to land was a number 2 challenge. Number 3, bureaucracy in government. And I'm ashamed we were included as UIA. They were so scared of us. That's why they never came in the first place. Before we called them for lunches and dinners, they were scared of us. Yes. I was wondering, how can you possibly be scared of us? My job is to help you. And anyway, so the government, we had to do something about government, especially the police, customs, cross-border trade was horrible for women. You had those tough customs guys, asking for bribes, asking for taxes that were not even there. Even after the East African Community was formed, and we have hardly any tax in between our countries, but they still continued, and the poor women were scared. So they would be scared. Then you have URA, the tax body. Women don't like URA at all. So what we did with all these government bodies, there are many, many more of them that the women didn't like, was to work with them for them to put up a women's desk. Even the bankers were another one. The women were really scared, even just of the security guard they meet outside the bank. These are maybe not very educated women. They run their business. They come with millions of shillings to bank, but the security guard does not respect them. So they would come in, and we worked with all these people, including the banks, and told them, you're missing. These are women with big businesses, or at least potentially big. They just need your help. And they did. So now the bankers are all having wonderful women's projects. Every bank has Superwoman or DFCU woman or all kinds of things for the women. And they are able to access credit. And also the government, we have improved tremendously. First of all, we're online for a large number of things. So we encourage the women, just go online. don't bother coming to see us because you don't like us. But go online and register properly your company and pay your taxes online. Don't go and see these guys. Just pay online. And all this now is possible. But at that time, it was really difficult for them. Yeah.
It's a good time to do whatever you have to do. If you're fearful, being online takes away all of that.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're very fortunate, but you must be an evolving person because you've seen all these transitions before online and online, and that's a different form of also experience that you're able to transfer for people to be able to get confidence from you. Because if you have been there without online and you've translated to online, then someone else will know that they too can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, you've also served as the Chancellor of Kumba University. What does this role actually mean as a woman?
Yes, my initial thinking, my first passion was to try and get education for everybody. So I've always been linked to the education sector in whatever way I can. So Nkumba University is a lovely university off Entebbe Road, does a good job the graduates are very well received and respected. And so when I was asked to be chancellor, and you know how busy I was, that was the time I was at the Uganda Investment Authority. I first tried to say, no, I am too busy. And then I was told that actually the one who works very hard is the vice chancellor. The chancellor is more come and graduate the students and maybe talk to donors or something, but it's not very hard work. So anything that helps education, I would be there. I would not refuse. So I am still, and now I am chair of the Makerere Endowment Fund today. Yeah, so I don't give up on education. I still think it's what will change our countries. Yeah.
You're such an amazing woman. Everything. You put yourself forward in everything. And you're really inspiring in that way. Yes, thank you. Thank you for all that work that you do. But you've also served on several boards, and we want to know that we can see that as a woman, I don't know how many women are on those boards, but most women would be fearful of taking on these positions. Tell us, what are some of the challenges that you have faced as a woman, just as a woman, in serving at this level?
I think I must tell you my background better. I had 4 brothers.
Yes.
I had no sister.
Yes.
So really, I have grown up all my life more confident with the men, more comfortable with the men than with the women. Yeah, so that was me. Yes, it's true. When I started on all these boards, I was the only female. But by then I had also become a feminist. Yeah, I do apologize to the women because I was so comfortable with the men, because I understood the men as I understood my brothers and my father, my husband, my sons. I tended to do the things that the men did and not what the women did. But when I was a lot older, coming to 40 actually, my friends who are feminists invited me for a number of their meetings. And that's when it clicked. And oh my God, we have a problem here, a big problem. And I was not seeing it because of my background. So then I realized that, 12-year-olds are getting pregnant. Things that really make you so angry. 12-year-olds are being pregnant, female genital mutilation, all the things that get done to women, forced marriages, gender-based violence.
Yes.
So that's when I became a feminist, very late. And that's when I started fighting. When I was doing the UIA, when it wasn't because I was a feminist, but because they were absent. Where were they? They were not coming. But then later on, I became a feminist. And that's when I started fighting for the various rights of women, joining the organizations that do that.
Yes.
Right now, I chair Akina Mama wa Africa. That's an Africa-wide organization for women empowerment, set up at Beijing, actually. It was set up then when all the women went over to Beijing to fight for our rights.
Oh, wow.
It was set up, yeah. And yeah, I chair that, but I'll soon be stopping. I'm coming to the end of my term.
This is amazing. That's amazing. There's just so much we can to take out from all your experiences. You've just done so much. So thank you very much for that. So you
But
are also
on the boards, you had asked about the boards.
yes.
Yes, I would frequently find myself the lone voice at the table. And my role would be to start asking where are the women. So that is a question that you expect from me in every board meeting until you do something about it. I know there's one board I sit on. I'm actually traveling there on Saturday. And I was just the only female and all the others were men. Now the chair is a lady, and they are out of the 9, 5 of us are women.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but every meeting I would say, my goodness, what's wrong with you people? And yet in the strategy and everything we do, gender is critical.
Yes.
They say it everywhere, but not on the board. Yeah, but I'm happy that it has changed so drastically, yes. As have most other places, yes.
Yes, yes, yes. It's good to live in today's environment, to live today, because we are able to experience the benefits of what women like you have been able to do, and maybe even other men, or whatever you've done to at least pave the way for women to be able to rise up. That's great work. Thank you. Thank you for that initiative. So you are an investment expert as well, an entrepreneur, a farmer. You know, you've been a mom. You sit on all these boards. Tell us, how do you do it all? Because that's the question women will be asking themselves. Our subscribers will be asking, excuse me, she has 24 hours. How does she do it all? You just talked about travel tomorrow. And then I thought, wow, she even has to travel tomorrow.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I think to the women, I can encourage you in one way, that if you are too busy now, relax. Because even for me, my children were priority number 1. I would not sit on any board that's going to distract me from that singular focus. So for me, my children were my number 1 focus for many years. But actually, I want to encourage you, the children grow up, and then suddenly you have no one to, to tie you at home, and you can then go out and explore the world. Yeah, so they were in boarding school as well, St. Andrew's Turi in Kenya. And I therefore had more freedom to travel and to do so many other things that I now do. The other thing is, have you got house help? I had such perfect house help. The nanny for my youngest son also looked after his children. So she stayed 30 years. And these were 30 years of peace. She was perfect. She was, she loved the children to bits. She looked after them. She knew which hospital to go to. So I would leave her with the child and I wouldn't be terribly worried. She's going to be okay. She knows exactly what to do. Yes. But again, I think that is good advice to many people who cannot retain house help. I don't know why, but you see somebody changing every 2 months and firing this one, complaining about that. So I was very lucky. But I think also it's my character. I welcome them to the home, adopt them almost as children, and look after them as much as I look after my children. So, and their children, I brought children were able to come in and that looks after your children.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for that. You can tell how you're able to, you need the help to be able to do what you do. But it's good to affirm to ourselves that if you're busy, if you have other priorities like young children, stay put, relax, finish that bit until you feel it's comfortable to proceed. Thank you for the advice. So you were also named as one of the top most influential and successful women in Uganda. So growing up, what did you see yourself being such an influential woman?
No, not at all. I grew up with only boys, so what we did was climb trees and ride motorcycles and ride bicycles and do everything that's rough until I was lucky enough to go to a girls' boarding school. And that's where I got girly friends. And that's when I began to understand that, you know, they are very, very different from me. And because of their background. And I began to balance a little bit what I was before. But sorry, I've forgotten the question.
The question was whether you saw yourself being this type of successful, stellar, influential woman. Yes. Did you see yourself?
Absolutely being not. Yes, I knew I would be a doctor because I was told I would be one. So I guess that's important enough for me. And then secondly, I was a good sportswoman. So I was a lawn tennis champion, table tennis champion, squash champion, motorcycle champion, and one more game. One more game. There were 5. I represented Uganda in. So yes, I was that in the early days, I was fully focused on sports. Yeah, I wasn't worried about how important anybody is.
There's so much that makes you the person that you are. Even just being a sports person, you transcend all of those skills into other categories of your life.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Yes, I think sports is very good for anyone. We find here in Uganda parents discouraging their children and asking them to focus on academics. But I think sports is very good for academics. It enables you to relax a bit, but also to concentrate, teaches you to concentrate, teaches you to be competitive. You actually want to win. And you just take that into every aspect of your life. Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you for that. So what are some of the challenges that you have faced as being a mom, juggling this, the life of maintaining a home with these children, single mom, and also just being the successful woman that you are? What are some of the personal challenges that you had to overcome?
I think the biggest challenge was when my husband passed. It's great to have a friend, somebody you can depend on. And he really was that. He was, a good husband, a bit too strict with the children. We were always quarreling about that. But maybe it was good for the children. I do tend to spoil them. I spoil them all the time. So maybe a little balance wasn't bad. So up to that stage, when he was still there, I think we were moving on well. We had 2 jobs. We were making good money, both of us, him more than me, but yes. The brewery is a great employer. The brewery is a great employer. If anyone is looking for a job, they looked after us. They really did. Anyway, so my husband, when he passed, that was my biggest challenge ever. Luckily, both my parents were still alive, so they were around. But that was the biggest challenge, and I already told you about that. Other challenges are now catching up. After you've agreed to sit on a particular board, or agreed like I did at Pepsi that I'm going into Pepsi, there's a lot of learning involved. Nowadays, boards are not about just you sitting there and making minor decisions. you have to know just as much or even more than the CEO. So there's a lot of learning. I sit on one of the bank boards, and God, we get trained every now and then. Trademark East Africa, we get trained every 2 months or so on different aspects of the business. So there's still a lot of learning involved in sitting on the various boards. And also the implications of your board not doing well are they fall, it's back on you. It is the board that's responsible for the company. So it's no longer just fire the CEO and get a new one. No, doesn't work like that. Yeah, so we discovered that as we went along. Other challenges, I actually had a lot of fun at the UIA, traveled the whole world, been to every continent, almost every country, and met the greatest people, Bill Gates. I met all those people, all the presidents. Yes, we were in a place, investment, where all countries are interested. So you'd get to meet, all the presidents would be there of the various countries. So we met interesting people and attended, interesting meetings all over the world. And we were able to attract investors to come to Uganda. And that also was very positive. The Ugandans began to trust us a little bit more as the UIA, that, we are doing a good job. We reported back to them whatever we did. And so at the UIA, I think I enjoyed it more than, there were some challenges here and there, but otherwise it was a lot of fun meeting interesting people every day. Then I retired from there in 2011. Retirement is weird. I think people need to begin to plan for retirement quite early. Okay, mine would not have been a financial problem. My company was still, even while I was at the UIA, I was sitting on the board of Pepsi, and we were doing okay. But you suddenly find you no longer have a position. You ask yourself now, when you were ED or UIA, everybody wanted to know what you had to say. Now nobody's interested. It really is a very strange position. Oh, no. I had decided that I was going to take some leave, that I would sit down maybe for 2 years and do absolutely nothing. No, I couldn't do that. Yeah, so I immediately started looking for other things to do, boards to sit on. Now that I was no longer in government, I could sit on private sector boards, and certainly they all knew me. And, find other things to do. So I worked with UNIDO, traveled the world again with UNIDO, all over Africa. Yeah. Wow. Yes. And started my farm. I always had land that I was protecting. I was going to be a farmer. So now was the opportunity, and yes, the farm is up and running.
And it's good. Wow. Yeah. Thank you. This is a lot of achievement, and thank you for taking us through those the challenges, but also translating to the fun aspects of all those positions. Now, everyone would be asking, has she failed at anything? Have you failed at anything?
Yes.
What is it?
There were a number of women's organizations that I had thought, because when I had put in place the Women Entrepreneurs Network, that I had felt I could work with, that I should work with. I found it really hard though. They were not welcoming, and so that was surprise. But I think maybe because I am used to being with men, and it just wasn't working for me. But so that was one challenge. Trying to work with the women's organizations in business, the ones in business. I managed to get into the NGOs, the civil society, where we advocate for better things for women. Those I have been working there, and I am actually, to add a title that you didn't know, I am SDG 5 ambassador for the UN Women. in
Oh,
Uganda.
wow. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Challenges, yeah, the children are different. They'll give you different worries, you know. I have a son who is a musician. Yeah, and everybody wonders, how did you allow a musician? What could I do? He wants to be a musician.
That's what he wants to do. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we should let our children do what they want. I was just looking at our list of the school I went to as a high school. They have something they talk about called their side hustles. So they are working. They did graduate like me, a doctor, but they are doing other things on the side. And you can see these were people whose parents forced them to be engineers when actually they wanted to be chefs,
Yes.
or they wanted to be tailors, or wanted to do beauty and all that. But
Yeah.
because in our time, there's no parent you talk to about beauty and music. And yeah, so they all went into the wrong profession, but they've managed to now start something at least in line with their passions. Yeah. So I also ended up in medicine, as we discussed earlier. But I've managed to do the things that interest me more. Business, yeah. Farming, very interesting. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So we should take it that was that the only failure you've had? The one for the women entrepreneurs group?
Oh, I think it's more than once. Yeah, it's been a few times. I now know better than to burn my fingers trying.
Right.
Yeah.
And so looking back in terms of you've just been talking about children, how would you compare how your mother raised you with how you have raised your children?
Yes, my mother was a strong woman. She was not very traditional. She was another one who played football and
Ah,
rode bikes. Yes,
wow.
yes, yes. So she never had, this cultural upbringing to teach me at all. But, she could comb your hair until you wanted to pull every hair out of your head. I remember that. She was a great dressmaker. So if I had a party I didn't have to give her long hours. I just needed to give her 1 hour and I have a beautiful new dress. She was that
Wow.
good. Yes.
Wow.
She gave us as much as she could. She was very hardworking. So she gave us everything she could. She loved sports. So my brothers are motorcycle racers. That for her was, yeah, she loved that. She'd spend her last penny buying a new motorcycle for one of my brothers, and until she's broke, but she would buy it. So that was my mother. She actually used to, when they became motocross, they drive around Uganda or around East Africa. She would go with them. She was with the engineering car. She was driving her car to support my brother Arthur. So that was my mother. She
Wow.
was a character.
That's a
Yeah,
different mother.
she was. Very strong, and she wouldn't stand nonsense. That's what she was.
You wouldn't. And is that different from how you're raising the children, your children?
Oh, totally. I think I spoiled mine to bits, but maybe you better ask them. Um, that's what I think. Everybody says I spoil them. And
Yeah.
then I also brought up my grandchildren. I had two grandchildren. They just left this year to go to another school where the dad is. So I had them one until she was 11, and my grandson was 13. So I got a second opportunity to be a mother again. And I guess I spoiled those ones even more than the first lot.
That must have gone around. That must have been worse. Oh, bless them. But that's so lucky, the opportunity to be with grandma and and for you to be with them. That's a
Yes,
great opportunity.
it
Yes.
was. It was definitely a blessing. It was, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Keeps me smiling and happy.
Yes, yes, and they keep you young.
They do. But
Yeah.
they've gone now. They come in at the weekend sometimes, yes.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And
Mm.
so, what future do you envision for women today?
Oh, I'm excited. My God, the opportunities these girls and women have now, we never dreamt about. We really didn't. So it's an exciting time where even just looking at the politics of Uganda, the vice president, the prime minister, the deputy prime minister, and all the most important ministries we run, all the agencies, KCCA, UNRWA, we run them as women. So I think we who were there earlier in organizations like that did a good job. And, this stuck in the ones who give the jobs. And now they're saying some of the biggest banks, the two biggest banks in Uganda, are headed by women. And a large number of the banks, the other banks, have CEOs that are managing directors or CEOs that are women. Yes. Of course, education has been a big equalizer. Women are now 52% of Makerere, 54% of Nkumba are girls. And therefore, they then appear getting the jobs. So I see a very bright future, very competitive. The opportunities, people have realized that we can do something. In fact, I begin to worry. We have begun to worry about the men, the young men.
Yes.
They are really frustrated.
Yes. 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 There's just so much around women now that you would worry about young men. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
How we have to achieve the balance. Yes.
Yes. We are working on it, but not very successfully. Because again, it is us, the women, who are working on it here. The men have got to play their role. They are the role models who will never get seen at home. They're out there in the bar or wherever, and the children don't see them. And then now that we are trying to bring the men on board, again, it's us, the women, that are trying to do that. And this is wrong. So we're trying to persuade the men to actually play their role.
Yes. They need to play their role. That's good. Yes, definitely. Thank you. And so we ask a question. Who is your ideal stellar woman?
Okay. Yes. I have a young lady that I really admire and love. That's Julie Gichuru. She's with MasterCard Foundation. She used to be on television. Yeah. So, yeah, I think she'd be an excellent stellar woman, considering she's also much younger than me. And therefore, the younger people need to be able to relate. Yeah. They need to be able to relate.
What attributes, what characteristics does she have that our subscribers can pick up on?
She's always thinking about other people. She's always thinking about the youth. Her television program was a debate by the young people in Kenya. And then she did interviews of important people. I think she did interview me once. Important people around the continent, Obasanjo, and she's interviewed all kinds of important people. And all that with a purpose of how can we make Africa succeed? Yeah. So that's where she comes from. And that's where the questioning is really, yes, we think we can do it. What do we need to do so that we change Africa? Yeah. So that's Julie.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, if we have to go back in time and meet your 15-year-old self, what key message would you have to give her?
Oh, life was so different in my time. First, I would tell her that everything's digital now. You'd better be ready to go digital. And then I would not choose her career for her. I would allow her to choose. I would never have been a doctor. And I could tell because I could see the difference between me and my classmates who were so passionate about what they were doing. Yes, I loved my patients. Yes, I would make them better. I would do everything possible. But I didn't have that interest that I could see my friends had because it wasn't my choice. And I should have done something else. Although at 15, if anyone had asked me, I would have been a tennis player, which I don't know if that would be the best thing for me to be.
Oh yes, oh yes, you would be a tennis player. Maybe tomorrow.
Yes,
You would have done well. You would have done well, definitely.
thank
Still.
you.
Yeah. So we have the festive coming on, Christmas coming on time. Um, so how do you plan to celebrate?
Okay, we have two families. My side of the family, my husband's side of the family. So we do try to. Well, they're all very big. Putting them in one place is challenging. So we will definitely have those two meetings, lunches, and have fun with both families on different days. Maybe Christmas will be with my brother and at his farm. And then earlier on, we shall have my husband's family, the Chigozis. Yeah. So that for us, family is very important. Family is important, both not only the nuclear, but the extended family. Yeah, it's important to me that I help where they need education, especially education. That's one area where I feel I must step in if somebody hasn't got school fees among my relatives. Yeah. So that's what we are planning to do. We may go for a short trip, depending. We are not so English as to have that Christmas that goes on and is really the end of the world. Christmas is here. I think for us, it's probably just another day, just another holiday. Let's go eat and be merry. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And does it mean what did Christmas mean to you as a child?
As a child, you had good food, you had a soda, and that's very good for my business because Christmas, we sell about 4 times as much as we sell in other months. So we need to start stocking already so that we can sell it. So yes, we would definitely have chicken, we would have rice, our matoke is always there anyway, and we would have soda as well. Then some sweets, I guess, and then a Christmas cake. Basically, I think that was what it is. And my mother was never that social in the same way that I am and would have the extended family. No, she would have just her nuclear family. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. I love the soda and it just brought back that childhood memory of looking forward to a soda.
Yeah, I know.
And do you have a ritual? Do you have something that has to happen in Christmas yourself?
Maybe the cake. We must have a cake, that's for sure. Basically it's still food.
Still food.
Well, not, but traditionally in my country, there was also the new dress,
Yes, yes,
the new baby pair of shoes.
yes.
Yeah. So Christmas was special. That's when every lady in Uganda gets her new busuti, our busuti. Yeah, you must have a busuti. Otherwise, what kind of husband have you got? But I was a bit past the busuti age, I'd rather have a nice tracksuit or something. But yeah.
Oh, that's very good. Thank you. Do you have a life mantra?
Myself,
Yes.
yes. I build for the future.
Wow, I love
Yes.
that. I
That's
really
what I
love that.
do. That's what I do. It's not just
Fantastic.
believing.
Definitely. So
Mm.
we're about to end, but would like you to leave a celebration message for the Stellar Woman magazine and subscribers and our readers and the Stellar Woman show. If you could leave them a celebration message, that would be great.
Okay. To the readers of Stellar Woman, I wish you a very happy Christmas. I hope we won't have any diseases coming back like COVID, and I am sure God will protect us from that. Uganda at the moment, Ebola is putting its head up, but I think it's well controlled. So by December, it shouldn't be there. I hope you enjoy your Christmas. You have lots to eat and you have lots of fun.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Maggie Kigozi, for your time, for sharing your story, your life experience, your business experience, your professional experience, your mothering experience, and all these experiences. I'm sure the Stellar Woman magazine subscribers and the Stellar Woman show will be able to learn one or two things. I've definitely learned a lot. I've learned a lot, and I'm thinking about what to implement today. And definitely there's something that I have to implement today. And I find that I am so privileged and lucky to have tapped into your knowledge. And I'm grateful that you spared your time and gave it to us. Thank you very much. Yeah, and yes, it's from me, Stella Olivia Kikoyo, the editor-in-chief of the Stellar Woman magazine, and our lovely Stellar Woman, Dr. Maggie Kigozi. Until next time, have a Merry Christmas. Thank you. Bye-bye.